This is a biomechanics trick and tip that we like to use here at More Than Movement called the two-thumb rule. And this is a visual reference, allowing our clients to understand what's happening in their body, really their upper and lower body and how they're synchronized together. And this is important because when we think about understanding what the core does, the core actually transfers force from our lower body to our upper body. And so if we're unable to coordinate those two halves of our body together, really the core is actually not doing much work. And so the two-thumb rule, what we'll do is we'll have a thumb, we'll place it right where our ribs meet. This is called the xiphoid process. We're also going to grab the other thumb and we're going to put it about 5 fingers below my belly button, so right by my waist. Now in this situation, if I was to bring these 2 points together or away from each other to start, my butt's going to go back, my chest is going to go up. And so we have a visual reference of those 2 thumbs moving away from each other when I extend. And so in the hips, this is what's called an anterior pelvic tilt, where my hips are going backwards. And so that bottom thumb can move backwards. When my rib cage extends and my thoracic spine extends, again, those 2 thumbs are moving apart from each other. Now, if I was to pull them together, this is called a posterior pelvic tilt in the lower body, where my hips tuck under, and flexion in the upper body, where my rib cage comes down. And we see a visual reference of those points coming from extended and anterior pelvic tilt to a posterior pelvic tilt and a more ribs down position or flexed position. And so what we're often going to do is we're going to try and bring this concept to the ground and to our movements. And so again, two-thumb rule, thumb under the rib cage or at the xiphoid process, other thumb below the waist. Again, we can see if I lift my back off the ground and extend my back, anterior pelvic tilt my hips, that distance gets what? It gets further apart. If I can roll my hips under and pull my ribs down slightly, my thumbs are going to come together. Now, this position primarily is where we're going to actually start recruiting the abdominal musculature versus being hyperextended and arched. A lot of times that's when our low back is going to kick on because our spinal extensors actually extend the body. So rolling the hips under, understanding two-thumb rule, navigating the space is really important for our physical practice. In something like a cat-cow, again, two-thumb rule applies here where I can only move my hips, okay, or I can only move my upper back. And so the two-thumb rule really, again, is a starting point for our instructors, but also for our clients to understand how they're moving in space, how they're able to control their pelvis only, how to control their rib cage and upper back only, but ultimately it allows them to put it together to help create congruency between the upper body and the lower body.